Fantasy playoffs are here. It's week 1 for most of you in the fantasy playoffs. And we're here looking at good and bad matchups to target for your fantasy playoff matchups. As always, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. We are 4 subscribers away at the time of this recording from 800 subscribers. I know there's 4 of you watching that aren't subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into it. Starting off with good matchups for quarterbacks. Jordan Love, consensus ranking QB 17, going up against Seattle. Averaging 18.1 points per game this year as the QB 10. I kind of like this matchup. And again, when we look at matchups for quarterbacks, it's all about the offensive line versus the defensive line. Offensive line pass blocking versus the pass rush of the defense that they are facing. I think this is a good matchup for the Green Bay's offensive line. I think they can protect Jordan Love, and if they do, he could potentially carve them up. Now, Jordan Love, is he going to throw an interception? There's a very good chance. That's just the type of quarterback he is. But I like this matchup for Seattle. I also think or for Jordan Love against Seattle, I also think it could be a potential shootout here. So I think Jordan Love, if you are deciding between him and a few other guys, I would bump him up a little bit just because of the matchup here. CJ Stroud, struggling this year, is the QB 25 this year. That is amazing. That he's the QB 25 this year in points per game. He is the QB 14 this week. Obviously, he's going up against Miami. Now, Miami has done a pretty good job against quarterbacks, although I'm not so confident in their pass rush situation. I know they're good against the run. Their defense has been better, but this could be a potential shootout here in Houston. So good weather inside. You're in a dome, so there is no weather. And I really like this matchup for CJ Stroud. Man, I hope coming off the bye, they can get things together, find Tank Dell, find Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, whatever you need to do, and get going. And then finally, this is gross, guys. Look away. But Kirk Cousins, to me, if he doesn't play well in this game, then it's, potential bench Kirk Cousins time. I don't mind Kirk Cousins, especially in super flex leagues this week, going up against the Raiders. The Raiders do a decent job at getting pressure at times, but then they're very inconsistent. I think Atlanta, if they can protect Kirk, and that's like the big thing, right? Protecting Kirk Cousins. But man, it's so hard. I don't expect anyone to be starting Kirk Cousins in a 1 quarterback league. The guy hasn't thrown a touchdown in 4 straight weeks, but potentially starting him in super flex leagues, I can see you getting away with it because I like the matchup. Some bad matchups here for quarterbacks, just 2. Jameis Winston, QB consensus ranking QB 15. I see a lot of people ranking him higher, going up against the Chiefs. Jameis Winston has been awesome. I think averaging over 20 points per game since he took over as the starter. Obviously, that 12.8 points there includes some games he came in where he wasn't the starter, when Deshaun Watson was there. I get a little bit worried about going up against the Chiefs. I know their defense hasn't quite been the same, but it's still a bad matchup for me. I still don't like that matchup for the Cleveland's offensive line pass blocking against guys like Chris Jones. I think the Chiefs can get after Jameis, and when they get after Jameis, he could be throwing some pick sixes. And then Jalen Hurts, I think, has a really bad matchup. Now, I'm not telling anyone to bench Jalen Hurts here. If you have Jalen Hurts and you're in the playoffs, you should be starting him. That being said, I think this is the worst matchup in terms of offensive line and defensive line pass blocking. I know that the Eagles' offensive line is really good. They're much better as as run blockers than pass blockers. And I think they try to beat the Steelers through the run game this week. The Steelers' pass rush is kind of relentless. It gets after them, and quarterbacks just struggle against the Steelers. Now, Jalen Hurts is a different type of quarterback because of those things like the tush push and his ability to run. But I wouldn't be surprised if you're looking at it Sunday night, Monday morning, and saying, oh, yeah, Jalen Hurts had a bad game in our fantasy playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised. Into some running backs with good matchups here. We have Gus Edwards, again, looking at the offensive and defensive line, right? Run blocking versus run defense. Gus Edwards, to me, has a good matchup. Now, he's the RB34. You can even make an argument for Kamani Vidal if you think they're going to use him more. Whatever running back for the Chargers you want to think about playing, I think they have a good matchup. The problem is they're not really efficient. They're not using them enough. But, I think the Chargers going up against the Buccaneers, I think there's a pretty good matchup, and we could see them I don't know if they're going to take the approach of throwing the ball through the air or not, but we could see them potentially taking the approach of getting back and establishing the run, especially, Herbert is a little bit banged up. He's on the injury report, so something to keep an eye on there. Could Gus Edwards have a good game? I think he's a desperation flex if you need him, and I wouldn't mind it. Rico Dowdle, I think, has a really good matchup here. He's the consensus ranking RB16, averaging 11 points per game, and even better since he took over as the starter. Cowboys here are getting a matchup. Cowboys are playing the Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers are the team to target, one of the teams to target when it comes to running backs, right? So I think Rico Dowdle, they try and get this game. They try and run the ball. They try and limit throwing the ball with Cooper Rush as much as possible. And I think Rico Dowdle could have a big game here. So I think most people are starting him. If you had any hesitation, let this be kind of a confirmation of, hey, the matchup's there. He's playing well. He's getting volume. The right choice is to start Rico Dowdle. Is it going to work out? We'll see. Into some bad matchups for running backs. Joe Mixon. Don't love Joe Mixon's matchup against those aforementioned Miami Dolphins. Sorry, I forgot for a second who they were playing. I'm not going to bench Joe Mixon. I'm not telling anyone to bench Joe Mixon. He's been the RB2 this year. I don't see how you can bench him, but Miami has been pretty good against running backs as of late. They've been pretty good against running backs. So I think they come out on the year as the 12th best team against running backs, it looks like. But I do think, the 12th best team for running backs. But as of late, they've been playing well. I wouldn't be surprised if we just saw a lower level Mixon game, but he's going to get volume in a potential shootout. You're starting him. Chase Brown is another one that you are probably starting at the RB7 spot here. Cincinnati is going. These are bad matchups again. Cincinnati is going to play. Cincinnati is going to be playing. Why can't I find them on my list? Oh, the Titans. Cincinnati's playing the Titans. Don't love that matchup. Titans are one of the better teams against running backs. I think they're kind of middle of the road, but they kind of, they have really good games, and then they have so-so games. I think potentially this is going to be more of a throw the ball to Chase and Higgins type of game versus running the ball with Chase Brown. But again, like Mixon, he's going to get volume. So I don't really see many people benching Chase Brown. And then Josh Jacobs is another one. Again, these are all top 7 guys here. These are just guys that I'm just telling you, I wouldn't be surprised if they had bad games. We get the Green Bay Packers going up against the Seattle Seahawks. And actually, to me, that's one of the worst matchups this week in terms of their offensive lines, right? In terms of their offensive lines. So Seahawks are middle of the pack as well, a little bit higher end, but they've been playing a lot better as of late. The Seahawks in terms of stopping the run and things like that. Now you can make an argument. Well, they played James Conner last week. He had 18 for 90. So that's good because of volume, but it's not great in terms of efficiency, right? Played Breece Hall before that, 12 for 60, Breece Hall. Played James Conner again a few weeks ago, and James Conner had a really bad game. I think Trey Benson led that team. Played the 49ers. They held McCaffrey 19 to 79, so for 79. So, are you going to get a good game because of volume? Probably. But it's not. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be like a 20 for 90, and you're praying for a touchdown type of game. Into some wide receivers here. Josh Downs has a really good matchup, in my opinion. He's all the way down there as wide receiver 75. Tough to trust him because he's been, he's been injured as of late, obviously, and I don't actually know. I think he wasn't injured the last game they played. We haven't seen him for a few weeks because of the bye week. It's Anthony Richardson. He did have a couple good games heading into their bye week, 7 for 72, 5 for 84 and a touchdown, 3 for 27 in the last game we saw him. But I think he does have a good matchup here for Josh Downs. So I don't mind in desperation PPR leagues potentially starting him, especially because guys like Surtain, I think are going to be trying to shut down Michael Pittman. And Josh Downs is one of those players, like, you can't really put Pat Surtain on Josh Downs. So, I think it's going to open things up over the middle of the field for Josh Downs. Khalil Shakir is literally on this list each and every week. Going up against the Lions. Lions are beat up, guys. They are beat up. And Khalil Shakir, this is half PPR, 10.4 points, wide receiver 40. Obviously, in full PPR, Khalil Shakir is a lot better, and he's a pretty safe play. He's one of those players where, like, if you have a lot of, like, studs on your team that can go off and you literally need someone to supplement them to be, give me 10 to 12 PPR points. Khalil Shakir is your guy. He's averaging 13.1 points per game in PPR. He's the wide receiver 34 in PPR. He's literally had double-digit points in all but 2 weeks this year where he's had double-digit points. So I think one of those games he was even beat up. So Khalil Shakir is a good start for me, especially in 3 wide receiver leagues. Darnell Mooney going up against those Raiders cornerbacks. I think he can find a lot of space here. Again, I like the matchup for Kirk Cousins, and I like the matchup for the cornerbacks versus the wide receivers. I think this could be a good game for the Falcons passing the ball, and I hope it's a good game for Mooney because I am starting him in a couple leagues. So hopefully it is a good game for Mooney. Into some bad matchups. Courtland Sutton. Now, am I benching Courtland Sutton? No, he's been too good to bench this year. He's been absolutely too good to bench this year. He's the wide receiver 25 on the year, but you look at it, ever since he had that goose egg back in week 7, Courtland Sutton's 17.1, 23.3, 19, 14.8, 29.7, and 16.2. You're not benching Courtland Sutton, but going up against more there of the Colts, I'd be a little bit worried. I'd be a little bit worried that he could potentially shut him down. That being said, if the Broncos are going to do anything, it's going to be through Courtland Sutton. Start Courtland Sutton. Just don't be surprised if he has a little bit of not a top tier game like he has had as of late. Keenan Allen, I think, has a bad matchup here. Keenan Allen and the Chicago Bears. They are going up to play the Vikings, and he gets Byron Murphy. Don't love that for Keenan Allen, who has also been pretty good as of late. He's been pretty good as of late. I think last week he had a bad game, but before that he had back-to-back 22-point games. We'll see. We'll see with the Vikings. They do generally give up a lot of points to wide receivers, if I remember correctly. They are actually the number 1 team for wide receivers. I just think Byron Murphy is a really good player, and I think it could be a tough matchup for Keenan Allen. He should see him the most there in the slot. And then Adam Thielen, I know a lot of people are going to be wanting to start Adam Thielen this week. Jordan Lewis is a good slot cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys. He's played well this year. He has played well this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Thielen, a little bit older as well, gets kind of tied up and matched up. He is going to get matched up with Jordan Lewis. And I think that could be a tough matchup for Adam Thielen this week. Into some tight ends to finish up here. And the first one I want to talk about here, we have a lot of good matchups for tight ends. Tucker Kraft, to me, is a good matchup going up against Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones of the Seattle Seahawks. I think they could find some space here in the middle of the field. Tucker Kraft, he's been a top 10 tight end this year in points per game. A little up, a little down, but I think this could be a good game. And again, a potential shootout for him. Mike Gesicki, I think, has a good matchup. And by the way, guys, I didn't mention this at the top of the show. Guys like George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Jonnu Smith, these guys have good matchups as well. But I'm not helping you and saying, hey, start George Kittle, because you're going to start George Kittle no matter what. So these are more of the fringe starters. Mike Gesicki going up against TJ Edwards. He's had his moments this year, just doesn't play enough to consistently rely on. If you're desperate, scrap heap type of stuff, I don't mind Mike Gesicki this week to start. And then a couple bad matchups. Grant Calcaterra. I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to start Calcaterra because of the Goddard injury. And maybe it will work out. But I don't love it. I don't love it for Calcaterra going up against Pittsburgh and Roberts, their linebacker. He's been pretty good at shutting things down, only allowing 0.22 fantasy points per route covered, only being targeted on 13% of his routes covered as well. And then Pat Freiermuth in the same game, I think, also has a bad matchup going up against Zach Bond, don't love that for Fryermuth. Zach Bond only giving up 0.17 fantasy points per route covered. So there you have it, guys. Some good and bad matchups here. Again, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Appreciate you all. We'll see you all very, very soon.